I'm up here with this massive brake drum, and this took an incline plane up and down this hillside to take goods from the quarry down to a huge Hoffman kiln down at the bottom and onto the Monty Canal. And I'm back on the Monty. Now, although this is in water, this is much further down the canal than where we've recorded before, which was Schoolhouse Bridge further back. This is an isolated section, it's not very long, where they run boat trips at the moment, and it is a place called LLanymynech. We're actually in England at the moment. The border is just in front of us over here. And what you'll see here is behind where we started, and just over here are two little wharves. And this whole area is a wharf. And up in behind us is a massive area of industry. It was massive here, and a big part of why the canal was built in the first place. You can just see a little hut on the other side there, which we'll get to in a minute. Now, this was originally a bit different to most canals, as in it wasn't built to transport goods between big sort of towns and cities. It was largely agricultural, but the idea of it was they could transport lime down it to the fields to create better soils. But this is where they run the boat trips from. They run up and down here under the bridge, and that's the wharf and the visitor centre for the trust here. But here is the bridge that goes under. Now, this is quite an interesting bridge, as you can see on that side. So it says Canals, which is Welsh for the canal, and Crosso I Cymru, and welcome to Wales. Now, what happens is when you get halfway underneath this bridge, you're on the border. So the road up above, in the middle of the road, is Wales on my left-hand side and England on my right-hand side. So there's efforts at the moment to restore this canal, and there's about 2 miles behind us, which we'll walk up a little bit on this video. But we're not here to see this, we're here to see what's up above. So let's just take a little hop up the road just slightly to the car park. So just here are a lot of clues to today's video. So the first thing you've got is the barge. That depicts how important the canal is to this area. And you've got various other things. This is the shells. This was once on the equator here, sort of millions of years ago, about 340 million years ago. And that denotes the seabed that was here. We've got down here, we've got the chains. And these were part of the chains that carried wagons, which we'll get to shortly, and part of the gearing for it. Then you've got this chimney, which we'll see very soon. You've got a Roman soldier, which will be part of the story as well. Now, the Roman bit was due to just up above here where we're going to go. There was a Roman fort right at the top. It's now a golf course up there, but that's the first part of that. Let's have a look at some of the rest. And we're straight on towards the Oswestry and LLanymynech Railway, which soon became the Cambrian Railway. And this would have ran down here from behind where we were there. There's some road, which is the Welsh Border. And this would have run off down, obviously, to Oswestry and take a lot of the goods away from the canal. To the right here, you've got one of the old branches of the wharf down here, which I pointed out a second ago. I'll just walk down here and show you that building. So the building itself was an old tally house, and this is where they would have checked goods being sort of loaded and unloaded here. They would have sort of counted the amount of trucks and stuff coming through here. You can see inside it now. It's in quite good condition. Back to the top, just to the left, is an old bit of tramway. So they've got this track in here that you can see where this has been built in. So there would have been I think the railway went across the top here, and this is for the old carts to come down to feed the wharf, which is just there behind us. When they were digging this out in the noughties, they found quite a lot of stuff here, but one of the things they found was in the ground as they were digging it, they could see the imprints of these sleepers, and they could see smaller imprints of the tracks, so they knew exactly where the tracks were. So just over here is where that cart was, down below. But if you look here, the railway would have come across that, as I said, and you can still see some of the old tracks in the ground here. It's a bit more visible on this end here. And this again goes over another section of the tramway, which comes down here, and you've got the carts under. Now this railway would have been built much after the original tramways were built, so it would have just been put over the top of the tramway to carry the goods away. You probably needed horses down through here, but I imagine this being downhill slightly, they could have just coasted down to the wharf down at the bottom there. And right by it are these stables as well, which are still here and standing, looking very good. So they've got quite good history on these as well. The stables were here obviously for sort of horses and mules and stuff, and donkeys. They did purchase a load of Egyptian donkeys when the Boer War finished and the army didn't need them anymore, so they were housed here as well. So why was all of this here? What good was it? What were they transporting? Well, there's a major clue just up ahead of us here, and this place is massive, and these are dotted all along down the canal, as you'll see as this video goes on. But this first one here, you can't really see it behind that tree at the moment, but that is a lime kiln. But what you can see behind that is a massive chimney, and that's not for this kiln, that's for another one, which we'll get to in a second. This whole hillside is full of lime. What you used to do is you used to burn lime with sort of coal, coke and wood and stuff, and you used to heat it up to 900 degrees or around that, and you would create the lime that you dug out, calcium carbonate. And the quicklime was used for houses, for building the mortar joints, for all construction really, as well as sealing and damp areas and stuff as well. And this is a more traditional sort of kiln, although it is a bloody massive one. But up here, look, this is something slightly different. Let's pop up there. So here it is, a Hoffman kiln. And this is similar to what it would have looked like back in the day. It has had some work done to it. You've got this absolutely massive chimney. And this is the only surviving Hoffman kiln in the country with a chimney, with a fully surviving chimney. There are about 3 of them left in total, and this one has recently been restored. So how exactly did this work? Well, on the top, you had 363 holes, and these were what are called stoping holes. And from the top, you could load coal over the top and into those holes, and you'd ignite that coal. Now, the beauty of a Hoffman kiln is they were designed to run continuously. You never had to put them out. And then to create that fire, and there was basically a flue duct all the way around in here, and these holes here go down into that. You can see where that opens up and goes into the kiln just up through there, and goes down underneath here into the flue duct. Now the flue duct, if you've ever experienced any sort of heating system, the chimney particularly in a house, same thing, the hot air is pulled up through the chimney, which creates pull through in the draft, the hot air rises. So that would have come through this duct and up this massive chimney, which would have pulled the fire through from the top and pulled the heat through to heat the lime up to 900 degrees. And in these as well, they can control that heat with some flue dampeners. And I know there's one on the other side, but there are meant to be several. So we'll have a little look. So you would have pushed like a metal plate across the top of those openings, and that would have, here we go, that would have sealed that up. So this is probably sealed in, but that would pull back and open it up, and that's obviously now closed. So let's pop in and have a look. So the beauty of these kilns, where they were separated into chambers, and as you can see, this thing is huge, absolutely massive. And each chamber was treated separately, so you could have one being cleaned out, one being made ready to fire, and one firing. So you're continually burning the coal, continually producing lime. Now if we go back to here, what you can see is a half-built wall, and there's several of these. And this shows you how it worked. So you'd have to build these walls in, and you'd load the middle up with the lime, and the heat would cause this to all then produce the quicklime. This was done, like I say, in every separate one. I can't remember, 12 to 14 of them, and they allowed a continuous usage. So there are Hoffman kilns that have been still in use. They still use them in places like India, and they use them for firing bricks mainly. This was adapted to a later design to do lime. But this one was built in 1899 and only lasted till 1914. It came too late really, and that is actually why it still survives now, because without the fact that it only had a 15-year working life, it would probably have crumbled and fallen apart. But with the World War coming, people didn't really want to do this horrible dirty job, and there were far better pays, sort of jobs going towards the war efforts. So things like this closed down. What you can see on here, look, so this roof is brand new, but here are the original supports for the roof, and they're all the way around. They found them all sort of concreted in. But you can see here, and I'll just go up to here, look, this is where the tracks would have been, and they would have had little turntables on here where you then turn the trucks into the unit, and then that's full of lime ready to go and is sort of bricked up, and lime is laid in those walls. So why the roof? Well, the problem is with lime, quicklime reacts quite badly with water, so they had to put this across to stop there being sort of massive fires and stuff and major issues, and you didn't want water dripping in through the holes in the top. So we're just at the top of the kiln now, which is just through that gap over there. So you'd have had coal coming down through here. They needed to get it up here first. So up here was actually a main line where they would have brought all the coal in with a sort of a steam railway. I don't think there's any signs of that up here. So that would have come up through here, been unloaded, and then loaded onto the smaller trucks to go down to the top of the kiln, then back to the kiln. So this track here, which would have run down from the tally house up there, down through to here, would have took your line from up above where it was quarried, which would go up to, and then you had another embankment up there. So those tracks, like I said, the mainline tracks would have come under here, and they would have ended actually just here. And what this was for loading the stone into the mainline railway trucks, which would then take the stone away to be sold. And then on the other side here, there's another raised, and this was the route down to the other kiln that we saw when we were coming in, the one just next to the Hoffman kiln. So you can start to see now just how important the canals were to the local area for all this industry going on. Not only were they taking the quicklime that had been produced out, but they had to bring the coal in. So without the coal, you couldn't produce the lime. So goods up and down this canal were very important to this lime works up here. And the railway obviously came along and took a lot of that traffic away. But this area here still survived and carried on with the Hoffman kiln being built. Admittedly too late. Frederick Hoffman had a brilliant design, but it was just too late for this area. And then up ahead here we have the tally house. Like I said to you, these are for counting wagons. There would have been a weighbridge in front of these ones, I believe. They would have had tracks running down each side, one to the Hoffman kiln and one down here to the, up over that top bit to the sort of the older style kiln. And again, we have wagons here. So they would have checked these, weighed them, they would have known exactly what was going through here. And although the roof's gone, a lot of the walls still stand in this building. So on these trucks, they'd have had like a token, and it would have had the team number on there. And then each truck would have had its own, so the tallyman could count who was producing the most, because they used to get paid what was called by piece rate. So for every load they got through, they got paid. So if you didn't send loads of loads down, you got paid less, basically. This then goes up towards the quarries up here. So let's have a little walk through. So up ahead of us, we have these two tunnels, and these would have had tracks in, and this is where the wagons would have been brought down. Now, we've got a very bizarre situation here. As you know, we're on the Welsh border, and the quarries on the English side were owned by one company, and the quarries on the other side, on the Welsh side, were owned by a separate company. And it was, I think in 1867 they became one, but for the first part of its existence they weren't. So what we have is here we have two inclined planes. One goes up there to the Welsh side, and one goes up here to the English side of the quarry. The quarries were later joined by a tunnel at the top, at which time I believe the Welsh side was sort of closed down. So an inclined plane is basically they have trucks, and the theory is a heavy truck full of goods connected to a chain to a truck at the bottom which was empty, when pushed over the side would lift the empty cart up to the top so you could fill it up. Probably can't see it from here, but that is a steep hill. It's not very long, but it's very steep. I'm a bit sweaty. Anyway, so here you can see the tracks. So we'll run side by side, and at the top of here you have what is the brake drum, and this would have been the brakeman here. He had a lever where he could pull if there was any problems and keep the pace of the truck right. If there was an issue, I think he could flip a switch and it would turn a side in. and that siding would have then taken any runaway carts down into like an offshoot, which would have just crashed. So you would have had massive chains on here. You can see them here actually. Well, they've got like the nice rope on there, but they would have gone and attached to like a pulley system on each truck. So just here in the ground, and what you would have seen on that statue, I think this would have been chains on this bit here, and then the sort of metal rope going down. When you pulled that lever, it pulled all of these, which then went onto the, you can see, would have gone up through into there, and it would have tightened and released the brake. And up ahead is the quarry. So this is just a sheer rock face. It goes all along this ridge. When you're coming up into LLanymynech from sort of the south, you can see it. It just stands out. It's massive. So limestone was formed by sea creatures. So 340 million years ago, this was on the equator and underwater. And all the sea creatures sort of rot down and could turn to limestone over all those millions of years. And then what they would do here, they would then drill down. They would drop charges into the holes, and then at 5 o'clock every day they would blow all the charges and blow a section of rock off. And if you look carefully, you won't see on this camera, you can see sort of the drill holes down through the rock face. And then all of this area below us here would have been covered in tracks, and they've loaded up all the wagons here and taken them to the incline planes behind us. So I better make this canal video into a canal video, hadn't I? So I'm going to jump down now back to the bottom, and we'll follow the old railway track onto the canal and see what's happening between here and Schoolhouse Bridge. So behind us here is the Hoffman kiln, and this is the railway track. So this is what ran in front of it, and the tracks that we found further back up. But if we drop down this path here, we go almost to the start of the video again. So we've done a big loop up the hill and around, and this is actually the start of the small section on the Welsh border where the canal was restored, and this is where they run the boat trips. You can see there's a bit of a winding hole here as well, so they run up between under the bridge and down to here and turn around. And like I said, this was the old railway. So this is the canal bed here, and the railway ran across the top of the canal here. This is largely what we're up against here. So this canal is overgrown. It's been abandoned for a long time, but there's about 2 miles of this basically to get it in. So the Schoolhouse Bridge, which we're going up to now, was the last remaining bridge to get the canal to Wales. I don't know how much of this is going to need to be lined. I don't know if it's largely good or it's going to be quite a bit of work to get it going, but it's 2 miles and that section is joined in. No more bridges. There aren't bridges or locks that need to be restored until the Welsh side, but there's a lot of level up funding going to Wales at the moment, and CRT are on their dredging sections and sorting out what's quite a large section of canal in water on the Welsh side. This brings us onto Bridge 90, and this is quite a cool area. We'll go across this in a second and have a look. As you can see, the bridge is still intact. All the walls here are still intact. But over this other side, we've got another type of lime kiln. So if you look on the top, just up there, would have been where the chimney once was, I believe. These worked quite differently. So you'd have had your carriages down here, which would have taken your finished goods away, but on the top you'd have had a hole, and in that hole you'd have loaded layers. So you'd have had a layer of sort of coal or coke or wood or something, then you'd have had a layer of lime, then another coal, lime, and you'd have layered it like that. You would then set fire to the coal, which would heat everything up and do the same process as the Hoffman kiln, 900 sort of degrees, 800 to 900 degrees, and then you'd have had finished product coming down through the bottom here, dripping down, which would have then been put into the carriages or the wagons and taken where they needed to be. We can go inside these ones as well. It's private property, but you are allowed to enter at your own risk, and you can see how different these ones are. So here we go. This is where you can see there's fire in there now, and you would have had goods loaded up through into here, and then all the lime out the bottom. These kilns were a lot less labour intensive than the Hoffman kilns behind, but they could only run for a certain amount of time. So the Hoffman kiln obviously took over and started producing a lot more goods, but because they were so labour intensive, eventually they became uneconomical to run. So we do have some really nice sections down here which are very clear. You can see this is needs digging out, but this was the old canal bed here. And on this other side here we have, or behind us we have Bridge 88, and on this bridge there is a small little section there as well, and there were tramways and various things up here. It may have been a track because there was a railway station up on the other side of here as well at one point. So it's not all sort of difficult restoration, it's actually really easy restoration along this canal. There are some kind of more grown up wooded areas, but largely this is pretty clear. And you've got this bridge behind me again here. You can't really see because of how overgrown it is, but just over there, I've got my hand in the right place there, there's that tunnel again. So behind on this side would have been the old railway station, and this opens up into another really clear section. We do have a slight embankment here. A lot of this canal is up on an embankment, so hopefully they've got a decent clay bed still in there. And they're having trouble up on the other end where they're currently restoring, because it's very porous there and it always leaked. So the canal was originally fed largely by the Llangollen Canal, as it's known now. That is fed by the River Dee at Horseshoe Falls, which puts a tremendous amount of water into the canal network. And there's a reason why the Llangollen Canal itself was never shut off. That feeds down through here, and this was once a branch of the old Ellesmere Canal, eventually became sort of the Montgomery Canal. But this will have a really good water source because so much comes down through from that river. So now we've entered this really nice tree canopy here, and this is probably the worst part for clearing for the whole area. So of this whole 2 miles, you can see this is a big basin here, and obviously the damp area, trees have sort of grown into it. But you do have a lovely tree canopy on this side as well as on the other side as well. So even though you've got to take these middle trees out to clear this basin, I don't think it'd be too bad. It should still have quite a nice covered sort of section to it. The basin here is about 3/4 of a mile from the Crickheath Basin, which is the current end of the restoration where the canal's open. So I think they'll probably open this section up, and then it's about halfway back. I'd imagine that's what they'll do anyway, clear this and have a nice winding hole here so boats can come down and moor here. That then just leaves quite a bit of sort of digging out and lining sort of further down. It's always such a shame to lose a tree canopy, but the reality is that you are producing far more habitat once that's gone than you are losing. So yeah, you're going to lose a bunch of trees, but you're going to create a connected water route through, and that connects all these isolated pockets like they've got LLanymynech, the big section down at Welshpool, and allows the genetics of animals to spread. So instead of basically species inbreeding, you create varied wildlife and varied genetics all the way through that area. And it's not a lot to do it here, which is great. This is a video I really wanted to make because of what was up at LLanymynech. That whole heritage area up there is fascinating, and it's amazing to see why the canals were so important. During the Industrial Revolution, it changed areas and the economy boomed because of it. And we started the Industrial Revolution. You saw it spread across Europe, and that's because of the canal network. Yes, they were very soon replaced by railways, but it wouldn't have happened without this. Horse and cart just didn't cut it. They couldn't get the goods moving to make these big factories and mills and all that lot sustainable, like the canal could do by moving 20 tons at a time on a barge. So I feel it's important to add that to the stories that I make, so we can see a wider picture of what the canal network was like. And these exist all over the network. And the beauty of this restoration is you're going to create such a tourist area by restoring it and open up that whole area to a whole new audience of people that can go and visit and enjoy the area. And I think that's great to promote history by restoration. I don't think the camera would do this justice, but they've got this little arch where they've got these small, fast-growing trees on this side. And they've created this little arch across the top here with the larger trees on this side. So we're going to lose those, but you're still going to have the canopy coming up and over the top from this side of the towpath. But this all leads up to the Schoolhouse Bridge, which was the £1 million bridge and the key to unlocking this entire network, which is just up ahead of us. And this is where we're going to end this video, because there's plenty of updates that I've done and other people have done in the section in front of us. I just wanted to cover the bit in the middle. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. It's probably a little bit different to what I usually make. It's more about what's around the canal than the actual canal itself, but I think you can agree that it's just a truly fascinating area to cover. So keep an eye out for some Monty updates. There would have been one very recently, and there'll be more to come. Have a great day.